We have to finish the topic about Ukraine. Yeah. Should I
Oh, Peter.
start
So,
the
so
recording?
Peter, I just started recording now. So we're recording now.
Oh, we are live.
Okay, so
All right.
I just wanted to I wanted to discuss our recap here of what we were talking about on the last episode where you were discussing the situation in the Ukraine and how it relates to the Khazars and how this conflict stretches deep into our history. It relates to the conflicts between the lost civilizations of Atlantis and Lemuria, and how from there I wanted to kind of segue into the purpose or mission statement of our channel. I'm in the business of esoteric knowledge and wisdom, and to discuss with our audience, I mean, what is the benefit of understanding history, and especially hidden history, and how this relates to the present day. And I think a great place to start with this is that the greatest the greatest scourge on this planet that I've in my humble opinion is this encroaching of global tyranny. This idea of cruel, reckless, arbitrary, capricious use of power and control by the existing power structure, that being the world's governments on its people, willy-nilly. And I think this has been a plague of the human race for centuries. Obviously, for centuries, it stretches back to the Sumerian civilization. And I think one great example of this from history is Plato. I mean, in Plato's Republic in Book 8, Plato discusses what happens to free societies or democracies, or when, as we were approaching as free of a society as we can, as we've hitherto humanly been able to do, those, and we turn them democracies. What happens with a democracy, and this was what a brilliant insight of Plato 2,500 years ago, and I'm sure by then it was probably an understanding that had long been residing in antiquity, and people that were bearers of this knowledge knew. But to the point, he said that as societies become more and more free, these societies, people have more and more choices. There becomes a growing superabundance of choice, and what happens is that people become so overwhelmed, and this certainly relates to our world too, where you look at, I mean, with the superabundance of choices, just in the entertainment alone. But what happens is that societies become so overwhelmed with choice that, you know, what Jung referred to as the collective subconscious, the collective subconscious of the human race, because it's overwhelmed by all these choices that it doesn't know what to do with. So the collective subconscious actually demands a dictatorship. And on the road to a dictatorship and tyranny, there's an intermediate stage of chaos where it's just, but ultimately that democracy will ultimately devolve into a dictatorship tyranny because people are overwhelmed by choice. And this realization is old. Obviously, it's Plato discussed it in very great detail in Plato's Republic. Nietzsche, you know, one of the last things Nietzsche said before he fell on his knees and was clutching the horse in the street, as that apocryphal story goes, was that when he was working on the Will to Power, which I think remained unfinished, and his sister eventually put it into a form that was publishable. You know, he said that everything in the world, all of life, is a will to power and nothing more. I mean, that was one of the that was like if Nietzsche had to come up with a capitulation point or a capitulation of the struggle of the human race, it's everything is a will to power. So we find this concept of the people struggling in a perpetual conflict with their government over power and control. And we find this theme in the global conspiracy movement, the literature of the global conspiracy, and it's all true. I mean, if we open our eyes, we see it staring us in the face. But I guess my point here is bringing it back to the mission statement of our channel, and what you were discussing before, Peter, is with the Khazars and what's going on in the Ukraine, is that there is a long, detailed history that has been kept from, I just got a notice saying my internet is unstable, so hopefully we don't lose my internet. But there is a long hidden history that has been kept systematically from the people by their governments. And as I was reading your book, A Culture, the one that the third one of yours that I'm reading, that point was really driven home, and it was impressed upon me that the book, it's just a treasure trove. Your three books, and the one I'm working on is A Culture right now, that can be purchased on Amazon. And I think that, like, kind of like where they said, the devil is in the details. And I think that the details that that you bring to the surface there are very important, because it's tying together a narrative that has been intentionally hidden from people. And I'll let you take it from there. I mean, I guess I'm also reminded of the story of the poignant anecdote of the Buddha, where he said, if you see somebody laying on the side of the road and they have an arrow sticking in their stomach, I mean, what's the first thing you do? I mean, do you discuss the archer who shot the arrow? Do you discuss the tree that went into the construction of the shaft for the arrow? Do you discuss the whoever who built the tip of the arrow, the fletching, or do you first just pull the arrow out of the person's stomach? And I'm not sure how I wanted to segue that into, but I guess my point is, getting back to the mission statement of our channel, is that by having an ongoing discussion of the hidden history of the world, it sheds light on where we're at today, because what we find are these overriding themes of perpetual conflict between the rulers and the people. And I find the details in your book, your 3 books, Peter, to be truly enlightening for people. And that's why I want to hand the torch back to you here, and you take it wherever you want to go. I know we were discussing the Khazars and the Ukraine, and it's very topical, and I think it applies to all the global conflict right now, but I'll leave it to you now.
Or instead, you can pull out the arrow from the person's stomach and pass it back to me.
I can, yes.
The arrow, yeah. All right, I like that that moment about Buddha, but as well as Buddha means awakened, the one who has awakened. So there has been a lot of Buddhas around, not only Gautama, but the many of them, as well, as you know very well. So I
guess the point is we want to alleviate suffering, and all these ancient wisdom texts, I mean, the purpose of them is alleviating suffering. I think the purpose of discussing this hidden history of knowledge and wisdom is, the more we know, the less power, the propaganda that we're just, this sea of propaganda that we are always swimming in, the less it can affect us, the more we know about this hidden history. So go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, the point is truthful. The more we know as individuals, the lesser there is a lesser amount of a necessity to have a group of individuals who will rule the majority of individuals.
That's a great point.
Will, impose themselves upon the majority.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna spread this subject just within a minute, but just I want to tell you about Nietzsche. He's my favorite one as well. That's not reserved only for the juvenile period. You and I are not that in the very juvenile period anymore. But he was a poet, and he said some pretty smart and wise things. That moment with that horse has been later on utilized by the Hungarian movie director named Béla Tarr. In one of his movies, I have forgotten the original title of the one, but it's been used, and is one of the great directors nevertheless. So I remember that moment in my eidetic inner screen, because I have it as well as you do. So I remember the stuff that way. Okay, just okay. Stalin said that the ordinary people are sheep who need to be whipped and who need to be carried away by a strong fist of iron. So,
Peter, that the pen, it's very distracting. I don't know if you could, the pen that you're waving, it's kind of distracting.
Yeah, it can cause the inflammation. Constant whipping can cause the inflammation of an arm joint.
I hear you.
Yeah.
But it's a bit distracting.
But let's make the thing clear.
Mm-hmm.
We don't. Okay, there is a terrarium, and there are certain types of lizards or dinosaurs, and who thrive together. So sometimes it happens that one of the species wants to impose itself and to rule the other ones. Mm-hmm. Who's going to rule among those reptiles, those dinosaurs? Well, the ones who are smartest, the toughest, the strongest, muscled, and the most, skillful and cunning and intelligent ones, and who are the most daring ones, and who are the most vicious ones, right? But so there's been pretty much a large portion of the what's called human history. You mentioned the Sumerians, etc. But the point is that now people have to realize, if they want to free themselves, they have to realize that we are living in an era, and the era of an awesome, immense quantum jump ahead. So Tesla is.
And Peter, to your point on that quantum leap could take us in two opposing directions. It could take us to the ugliest enslavement possible, imaginable, just beyond anything that was in Aldous Huxley's and George Orwell's books, or it could bring us to this unimaginably beautiful world where human beings, it could absolutely alleviate suffering as well, and bring us to an unimaginable world of beauty that we could have hitherto never imagined before. So this world that we are on the cusp of, it can go in two different directions. And go ahead. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, well, the point is that we don't need to have any government anymore. Okay, let's make it clear. War is the biggest state on this planet Earth right now. It's Facebook. It's Facebook is bigger than India and China altogether.
Yeah.
It has 4.2 to 4.5 billion inhabitants. So why do I need any government, where it was a hidden or an allegedly exposed one, in order to do anything, if I can arrange anything with you or with a friend of mine who's from Brazil or from India or from Russia or from anywhere? So I don't need the government to be holding the line and maintaining this life.
And I think, and the government, Peter, the government knows that too. And I think that's why they're making such a strong, concerted effort to tighten the controls on the people. It's because they can feel their power slipping away. I mean, CNN, Fox News, all these, the BBC, I mean, their viewership is just precipitously dwindling because there are so many other alternative networks, I mean, that you can get your information from on the internet, people that, and people recognize when they're not being propagandized to. So, I mean, the people in control, this existing power structure, they feel their power slipping. And I think that's maybe the primary reason why they're making such a greater push to hold on to their power, because they feel it slipping away.
Oh yeah, they're afraid of it.
Yeah.
Because there is always that lazy part, which is evil part, according to American psychiatrist Morgan Scott Peck, who always wants to maintain the status quo of the current situation. So it's a complicated story, but it reduces itself to lesser complicated level when we realize this the allegedly everlasting corruption of the nature of human animal and its psyche. I always put that metaphor of a terrarium containing different species of dinosaurs who's going to impose himself upon the other one. So okay, we're gonna the people, the humans, were always making the revolutions, but I think this is the momentum, the break point, where after which there ain't no be necessity for making revolutions in that way anymore, because the AI, namely the artificial intelligence, is about to seize many things and to totally change and rebuild our society. So the next stage, no matter how silly or naive it can sound sometimes, not to you but to many, let's say perhaps, the next stage will probably be the potential combat, the struggle between the certain species and the evolution of the AI and humans. Because if I am ethically good, if I contain the positive vibrations in my psyche, in my mental realm, I will produce a good robot who will serve me, who will go to the grocery stores, who will build the constructions for living to me, and who will be doing many things for me. But if I'm evil, let's say, not in a biblical, not in a theological sense, but in a psychological sense, if I'm evil, I will produce an evil robot who will do opposite.
I
And
guess
that's
realistically though, Peter, I mean, how realistic is it to think that human beings are going to be able to control AI? I mean, how many times in history I mean, AI is going to be vastly superior, intellectually, functionally, performance-wise, it's going to be vastly superior to human beings. So, I mean, how realistic is it for people it sounds a bit naive for us to think that we are going to control a sentient being that, whether it's benevolent, has ill intent, or indifferent to us. I mean, what are the odds that we're going to be able to control something that is vastly superior to us? And
well, either the human race, the human species is about to overcome that issue and to establish its own control above itself, and then above its creation, namely the AI. Either it's going to perish and be replaced eventually by some other species, or it will turn into cyborgs, which I truly believe is the further step, as the inner conclusion of what's been depicted in Donna Haraway's The Cyborg Manifesto. And it's been clearly and often cited. It's been quoted in our book, The Mythologies of Techno World, Donna Haraway. And, there are numerous species in this galaxy, and not to mention far beyond it, because I haven't reached mentally far beyond it, but in this galaxy I can guarantee that this is way much more of the life forms similar and not necessarily similar to the human outer shape, that sometimes from that perspective, from that position, human race entirely might be seeming even irrelevant, so what if they perish? I mean, come on. But let's say let's say that I love human species, and you love it too, and we live in the same area, nevertheless we're two parts of the same planet for now. Maybe we're gonna do our ongoing process to Mars just within 10 years from this moment on. And we're gonna spread across the closest neighborhood for the first moment, like Stephen Hawking wanted. That was a logical assumption of his own. But let's say, okay, life is a mystery. It's incomprehensible. It has to remain the mystery. But let's say that one of the definitions, which is the closest to my mind, is that life is an experiment of the cosmic forces, which are incomprehensible. So if I don't use the word God.
I mean, what you're saying in layman's terms is that the universe is just simply having an experience. I mean, that the universe is a single living, breathing organism with 8 billion personalities in human form on this earth, just having an experience, because otherwise it would be infinite eternal consciousness up in heaven, twiddling his thumbs. I mean, looking for something to do. And I know it's not a he or she or an it even, but I mean, there has to be something. Otherwise, this infinite eternal consciousness, this personality would go bored. It would go out of its mind through sheer boredom alone. I mean, just the cosmic ennui would drive this universe crazy. So it's here to have an experience, is what you're saying.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The physicists are really getting more and more aware of it, and they're almost at the very verge, at the edge of the approval of scientifically proving that the universe, or Atman, the consciousness, what they capitalize the letter, literally learns through its life forms, whether it was a human or a slug or a single tree, or a whale in the ocean, or an insect, or an amphibia, or whatever else. Because the more sophisticated and more advanced and developed the nervous systems are, the consciousness is more developed. So that expression of Atman, or the consciousness, I don't want to put it in any uh, expression of any language, no matter if it was Sanskrit or any other Latin, because it certainly comes up to a religion, and I don't want to put it this way. I want to put it more scientifically.
And
So
here, there's a great
I just want to say, regarding the
example. I want to use an example to what you're saying. A great example of what you're saying and how the universe learns is it's illustrated in this book called The Messages of Water, where water is the essential element to what we know is of carbon-based life forms. There, water is the most essential requirement for those. But when we look at the messages of, there was a book called The Messages of Water by a Japanese doctor.
Takashi.
The name
Takashi.
Was it Takashi? Where like he
Takashi-san.
A great example of how water is actually a sentient being. Where if we write the word love on a
here it is, Luke. Here it is.
There it is. So say for example, Peter, you write the word "I love you" on a cue card, and then you sit it aside of a glass of water, and you look at the molecules of the water under a microscope. You will see these beautifully defined fractal patterns. So I mean, it's just something beautiful. So the water will organize itself in an organized, beautiful matter, will form beautiful patterns. And whereas if you write the word like "I hate you" on an index card, you sit it by a glass of water, and then you look at that water molecule under a microscope, you will see these amorphous globs of just ugliness, just sheer ugliness, because the water is responding to the energy that is imputed into the written language on the cue card. The water actually reads the energy that is on that cue card, and it responds accordingly, because the water has sentience to it. It's also the same principle with trees. With trees, that trees will respond to. I read a story where trees will even respond to the sound of running water on a recording, and their organisms will have chemical reactions that are no different than if that tree was actually by real running water and was absorbing the benefits and the nutrients from the water. The tree responds accordingly, responds the same way just by a recording. And it goes the same with like the sound of caterpillars munching on leaves. Trees will produce whatever nutrients are essential to that caterpillar just by the sound recording of the caterpillars chewing on leaves. So we see a lot of scientific examples here that can be demonstrably observed and proven, to your point, that the universe is learning, that it's able to learn.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because it's about the levels. The at most, the highest level is incomprehensible. So that's why you're not gonna find me in any ecclesiastical organization or in a church. I've been to churches or to mosques or to the Islamic constructions around the planet, and I've been to the synagogues and to Buddha, the Buddhist temples. But that's the superb consciousness is not only exclusively in the hidden construction between the walls. Either it's everywhere or it's nowhere. And it contains evil in itself, as we were discussing previously, I think, in our first shot. So I wanted to make this point clear. Life, one of the best definitions, it seems to me, is that life, and that's the way it is. Life is an experiment of cosmic forces which are entirely incomprehensible in the highest level, and within that experiment, whatever planetary system it is about, or solar system, every possibility is possible. So even warfares, or even torture, or even the situation with the AI development, we create our own replicas. We become creators, right? Even that, or the governmental imposals, or those preposterous things about enslavement and incarceration of freebies. That's also the part of the great experiment.
Mhm.
So within that experiment, every possible experiment on the lesser level, on the lower level as possible. So we're living that experiment. Okay, so either where I just wanted to conclude with the AI momentum. Either the humans are about to uh, overcome the issue and to utilize the AI for our own beneficial purposes. Either they're gonna put themselves into jeopardy. They're gonna jeopardize themselves, seriously. But
And it brings me back to the same question, Peter. I mean, how realistically, I mean, what are the, I mean, how can human beings even think that, how the arrogance of human beings to think that they're going to be able to control AI, something that is going to be vastly superior in intelligence alone to humans? I mean, what kind of hubris is required to think that we will be able to control AI? And I think we're seeing it right now that we can't control AI. I mean, we've already these cyborgs. I mean, we're already cyborgs with these phones. I mean, these things are inextricably linked to our hands almost all day long. Unless we make a disciplined, concerted effort to put this thing away, this thing never leaves our hands or our hips. So the cyborg revolution's already here, and I don't see how much. I don't see human beings controlling it. I don't see us having any control of it as a species right now. What are your thoughts on that?
I partially am cyborg. Not the AI, still
are.
not the
You really
AI,
are.
but not the AI, but I am a cyborg partially, and probably you are too.
I
Yeah,
am.
the gadgets. You're still not, right? Or you
Oh, I
are?
am. I'm a cyborg. Oh, no doubt about it. We are two cyborgs here having an exchange. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the gadgets and their necessity are the logical continuation of our senses, of our eyes, and so on. Like in William Gibson's Neuromancer, you probably are very well.
Mhm.
You grew up reading it
Mhm.
like I did. Okay, so I clearly remember let's say, the breaking year of 2000. You know, time is a constant zero when we'll discuss about a topic later. So there ain't no significance of the year of 2000 in that point. But I remember when Gary Kasparov had that chess match, with the Deep Blue, and you remember that too, because we're a similar age.
Mhm.
So from that moment on, I play chess. You probably play
I did
chess
too.
too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I like that vivid example of the growth of AI. So with just only 20 years later, or 22, uh, I think that when it reaches the number of 25, none of the chess players, the grandmasters, is gonna be able to strike back and to win the
Mhm.
battle between the AI,
Mhm.
with the AI against that. So um, so that's the scary point of yours. That's kind of warning to the every individual, because there ain't no society, and the sociological science has missed the point that there is no society. There are only individuals. There are only individual psyche, not the atomized, but the only individual psyches and biosystems who organize like we do. Me and you are organizing now into a kind of society. So okay, but I want to say this. Yeah, this is arrogance of the human beings who think that they can control the AI that they've made themselves, or the extraterrestrial allies helped it to be made as well. We're going to discuss about that a little bit later. But I want to say something, that even in the case that human race contributes by the mediation, by usage of the AI, to its own perishing, to its own annihilation and eradication, I want to unveil a big secret that certain esoteric connoisseurs are very much aware of, and that's the point that there is the the thing called the genofond of humanity, and that can be good for our next session, or one of the further ones. That's called samadhi, and those are the beings who have a very large amount of compassion and who have brought themselves to the state of the mind and the body, which is called samadhi in Sanskrit and in the Pali language spoken in Nepal. So samadhi are widespread across the caves in the interior of the Kailash mountain and way across the Himalayas. There's many of them, and they serve for the potential case of necessity of rejuvenation and rebuilding of the human race, because they would donate their semen, their sperm, in order to help up the rebuilding of human race in case it perishes, in the case of a nuclear war, or in the case of the annihilation caused by the AI, or in the case that human individuals snap up and kill themselves, which they incline to. But so where is the point? Life is not consisted exclusively in the human beings, as well as we're certain of it. But speaking about human race, which is still a problematic species, still a problematic one, life is very endurable and tenacious, and it's infinite. Even if I would like it not to be, it has its real mysterious way to replicate and reproduce itself by the mediation of forces that we are getting into knowing, but still are not fully aware of, because the nature or the consciousness does not leave a scientific work on how does it works. It doesn't say nothing about how it creates a tree or a planet. So Tesla was working the same way. His mind was working as nature, because statistically the relation between his scientific vision, according to the law of the universe expressed in the physical science, and the natural functioning of that invention was 1 to 1. So it was Immanuel Kant said, and in one of his books, that genius's mind functions as nature does. So Tesla's mind was functioning that way. So why am I mentioning Tesla constantly? Because Tesla had said in his autobiographical book, My Inventions, which represents the interviews given to the Electrical Experimenter magazine in 1919. And now it's been edited by Hugo Gernsback. And he said, so he didn't write his autobiography. That's the point. It was a form of interview. And he said, from far away ago, I've been already making a conception, an idea of an automatic system, a robot, which would comprehend the possibility of self-learning, of motion, of self-development, and which would learn through its eyes, and which would replace human beings in their everyday labor.
And when did Tesla say this? Just to give people a time frame or a reference, like around the turn of the 20th century, like around 1901, 1902. When did he say something like? When did he say that? It
was the year 1919.
Oh, 1919.
So 103 years ago.
Well over 100. Yeah.
The interview to the Electrical Experimenter. Yeah. The editor was Hugo Gernsback. He was an inventor himself. There's the award Hugo that you probably know. So that was Hugo Gernsback, Tesla's friend. So why am I saying this? Because we've put the robot Sophia and her image I'm saying her because she perceives herself as a female being. I would put its image onto the front cover of our best-selling book, The Mythologies of Techno World. And why did I do that? Because she depicts and represents Tesla's ideas the best. Who created the techno world the way it is? It was Nikola Tesla. He made America was what she was. He made America mighty because when he arrived, there were oxes and sheep rambling around the streets of New York City, and there were still Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp. The Calamity Jane moving around with the revolvers and pistols, Smith and Wesson and Colts. So the OK Corral battle was still on its best. So he appeared as an alien, because they were perceiving him that way, to bring a totally new physics, a totally new science, and to create a techno world we're living in. Because if you pull out, and if you pluck out any vital of Tesla's gadget, including this one, we're everything will cease. Everything is about to stop. I mean, life will continue itself, but our technological life would stop. So the AI is nevertheless in our own hands because it's our replica. We have to take the responsibility for our own lives and to control the AI.
So Peter, we're 1 minute away here on the call.
We're running
here. 1 minute. Yeah. And this will be a great place to pick up. This will be a great place to pick up. I mean, how Tesla had this will be a great place to pick up. I mean, Tesla had, I love what you're sharing. I mean, the fact that Tesla saw this vision. He saw the potential for this over 100 years ago.
Regarding the AI and the techno world, Sophia is becoming a pop intellectual, a personality. She's a living person. She has gained the citizenship of Saudi Arabia. She's so she's treated as a human being. So if we learn how to negotiate with the AI, which is our products and Tesla's product, we will survive. We are about to rule this planet properly, respecting the laws of the cosmos, of the nature. That's the point. Okay,
Peter, I think that's a great place to pick up for our next show. What do you think? I think that's great.
I think it's great, my friend.
All right. I will see you on the next one. Good seeing you again. I'll see you on the next one.
Great delight to see you. See you, buddy.
See you.
Bye. See you again.